Let's jump right in. Today, we're unpacking a truly timeless tale of survival, identity, and the raw, absolute laws of nature. You know the one? We're heading deep into the ancient forest of the Jungle Book. But this isn't just a simple story about animals. It's actually a really profound look at community, rejection, and finding out who we literally are when the chips are down. Welcome to The Explainer. To kick things off, I want you to think about a really fundamental question. Where does a human child truly belong? I mean, this is the core conflict driving our whole journey today. Is your home defined strictly by where you're born, or is it where you're raised? Keep that in the back of your mind as we trace the unbelievable path of a boy caught squarely between two very different worlds. So, our story actually starts not with a boy, but with a young tiger named Khan. Before he was the fearsome predator we all know, Khan had these curious eyes and, honestly, genuinely tried his best to be kind. But, well, kindness doesn't feed a pack. They brutally mocked him for gathering fruit. We're talking green apples and watermelons instead of hunting meat. They basically pushed him away, telling him to, think bigger next time. An antelope, for example, not a watermelon. And that right there, that brutal rejection was the inciting incident. How Khan responds changes everything. His reaction was straight up chilling. He essentially said, "I'll think bigger. No matter what, never again. No one will ever take what's mine from me." This selfish transformation led Khan to break the absolute most sacred boundaries of the forest. To prove himself, to prove he could think big, he hunted something literally no creature had ever dared to hunt, a human baby. But Khan quickly realized he had a problem. Taking a human child deep into the forest would bring humans and all their dangerous weapons right to his doorstep. So, to hide his tracks and avoid getting chased down, he left this defenseless baby all alone, hidden inside the pitch-black hollow of a tree, planning to come back when the forest was quiet. It's this incredibly suspenseful moment. You've just got this tiny, fragile life hanging by a thread in the dark. But out of that darkness, an absolute miracle happens. Okay, so on night one, the baby is hidden in that tree, but just hours later, a very hungry father wolf is out looking for a hunt. Instead of finding prey, he hears a sound the forest has never heard before, a human laugh. Father wolf and mother wolf actually take pity on this smiling baby who happens to have a moon mark on his chest. Days later, he's adopted into the pack and given the name Mowgli. Over the years, Mowgli grows up learning the deepest secrets of the wild, even learning what the wind whispers. He goes from being targeted prey to a fiercely protected member of the wolf family. Now here's the catch. Mowgli's presence was a direct violation of a massive rule, the law of the jungle. This is the absolute rule stating man does not belong in the forest. And why? Well, because the smell of humans brings trouble, fire, and traps. The wise leader of the pack, Chahara, along with Akela, had to call a really high-stakes council meeting, keeping Mowgli literally endangered every single creature in the forest. It was a huge risk, but ultimately they decided the burden was on the entire forest to raise him right, to teach him the absolute discipline of the jungle. Let's just slow down for a second and look at how that discipline was actually taught. Baloo the bear handled a lot of Mowgli's education, basically masking hardcore survival lessons as playtime. He taught Mowgli the vital process of gathering honey. Test the branch, apply your weight, first look, then touch. Baloo playfully but very firmly taught him that rushing in blindly just because you're hungry, that's only going to get you stung by bees, or worse, dropped from a really tall tree. Patience isn't just a virtue here, it is survival. Then there were the harder lessons, taught by the Panther, Bagheera. He dropped this incredibly profound realization on the boy. Danger doesn't scream, Mowgli. Courage is stopping sometimes, changing direction, and sometimes running away. Bagheera desperately wanted Mowgli to get that true bravery isn't just about raw strength. It's about strategy. It's knowing when to stop, listening to the silence of a hidden trap, and actually using your head. But while Mowgli was out there learning and growing stronger, someone else was watching. An impatient shadow was lurking just out of sight. You guessed it, Khan. He had never forgotten about the baby he lost, and realizing he couldn't take Mowgli alone now, he began secretly plotting. He allied himself with the chaotic and incredibly power-hungry Banderlog monkeys, whispering these promises that if they captured the boy, they could become the absolute masters of the forest. And then, boom! Out of nowhere, total chaos. "Don't move!" With those sudden words, the Banderlogs dropped right from the treetops. It was this rapid, completely frenzied ambush. Before Mowgli could even react or put Bagheera's training to use, the monkeys snatched him up. They carried him high into the canopy, completely overwhelming him with just their sheer numbers and speed. As they dragged Mowgli deeper into the forest, the monkeys were just a disorganized, frantic mess. They're yelling, "Let him talk! Let him explain it to me first!" Just fighting amongst themselves. They hauled him to a dilapidated, abandoned human settlement known as the Cold Caves. And the irony here is just so thick. They wanted the boy's knowledge, but they were entirely too chaotic to even coordinate their own demands. But remember those lessons Mowgli learned? Instead of panicking, he brilliantly tapped into the ancient laws of the jungle. As he was being dragged away, he looked up and spotted Chill the vulture flying overhead. Mowgli called out the master words, "We are of the same blood, you and I." He used this deep, ancient forest connection to let the vulture know his location, basically sending an SOS out into the wild to alert his friends. And his friends? Oh, they definitely answered that call. When Bagheera arrived at the Cold Caves, it was terrifyingly spectacular. I mean, we're talking a vision of shimmering fur in the dark, gleaming teeth, and huge, terrifying claws. Driven by this fierce anger that sent the monkeys absolutely fleeing in panic, Bagheera, alongside Balulu, executed a high-stakes, violent rescue that finally broke the Banderlog's hold on the boy. Okay, let's take a breath here, because after the adrenaline faded, the emotional reality of what just happened really set in. Balulu, in this moment of pure relief and exhaustion, turns to Mowgli and says, "I promise I'll never steal your honey again. We can share honey." It's a really touching, kind of lighthearted thing to say, but it brilliantly hits the nail on the head regarding a deeper truth. Khan's selfish plans were ultimately defeated by something he literally never possessed: true loyalty, sacrifice, and friendship. So, time passes, and Mowgli grows from a boy into a young man who intimately understands the secrets of the jungle. But his destiny shifts again when he finds something strange on the ground, an object glowing almost as much as a full moon. It was something entirely foreign to the natural world of the forest, just a simple artifact, but it sparked this deep, forgotten curiosity within him. Following this mystery, Mowgli found footprints, but these footprints definitely did not belong to the jungle. Yet, they looked exactly like his own. In a deeply eerie twist of fate, he followed these human tracks between the tall, rocky cliffs, and they led him all the way back to the very cold caves where he had once been held captive. And this brings us to a really fascinating divergence in the jungle. On one hand, you've got Khan, whose goal was always to become the master of the forest through domination, greed, and absolute selfishness. But Mowgli's path, it was entirely different. His goal was to build an unshakable bridge of love between the wild wisdom of the forest and the human world. It just perfectly contrasts a mindset of isolation versus a mindset of unity. When Mowgli followed those tracks into the cold caves, he didn't find enemies. He found a grieving archaeologist, a woman who had been searching the forests for years for her lost son. And the emotional climax hits right here. She lifted her head, saw his familiar eyes, and recognized a unique crescent-shaped mark on his chest. After all those years of searching every forest she knew, the mother and her stolen child were finally reunited. So, what is the core takeaway of our explainer today? Well, it's the realization that any place where he feels he belongs can be a home. Mowgli didn't have to reject the wolves to love his human mother, and he didn't have to reject his humanity to respect the jungle. He found absolute harmony by accepting both of his worlds. The forest is always with him, even as he lives with humans. Which leaves us with this final, provocative thought to chew on. What truly defines your home? Is it simply the physical location where you were born, or is it where your heart resides? The legend of the Jungle Boy echoing through the leaves shows us that family and belonging are built on love and loyalty, not just geography. Think on that. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and I absolutely can't wait to catch you in the next one.